Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. I leave you for a week for Theater Throwbacks. I come back twice as strong, man. You're getting a little two for a little double dip with the Seaman on Theater Throwbacks, and I thought it was only right to get into this one because I went and saw the remake of this movie that came out last weekend and haven't had a chance to talk about, but because I wanted to talk first about this one, the original, the 1989 version of this movie. It is a Stephen King adapted film. I'm a big fan of the series. I was a massive fan of the book. I was doing it for a school project. I got about halfway through. The project due date was coming up, so I watched the movie because it is very, very accurate. The movie is written by Stephen King the way the book was written by Stephen King. He did that a bunch in the 80s and 90s. You know, every once in a while, some of his film adaptations would be directly his. So I knew I could trust the movie, and I loved the movie back then. Finished the book, loved the book, and it's very, very faithful. It adapts the material quite well, as Stephen King, knows how to do. And Mary Lambert delivers a really interesting, kind of horror flick here that, like I said, is just always kind of stuck with me. I think there's a lot of cult fans behind Mary Lambert's vision in this movie. So I'm excited to talk about. So I'm going to pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Pet Sematary. Those unfamiliar, like I said, man, this is one of my favorite King books. One of the first ones I read, and it's just always stuck with me. Certain scenes from the book just live with you forever, and then you get to see them adapted onto the screen, and it's really cool. And this movie, like I said, it does adapt the material quite well. And if you're not familiar with the Pet Sematary story, it follows a family, the Creeds, and in the back of their property, there is this pet cemetery where kids kind of bury their pets. And after the family cat, kind of meets some misfortune, their neighbor goes to take the dad back to bury the cat. And, he kind of has been adopted into the family in a way. He really likes the kids, and he doesn't want to see the little girl get too upset. So he brings them to a different place, somewhere past the pet cemetery. And we learn that this burial ground that they go to has the ability to raise the dead. So that's the basis of the movie. And it goes in a bunch of places that raise a lot of questions about the dead. I mean, the book always got into, like, what death is and coming back from death and maybe things shouldn't come back after they die. And the movie explores all that really well as well. And like I said, it adapts the story in a way that really works. I liked what Mary Lambert did. It's funny, you watch the movie now, and some people might say, oh man, it's really campy, it's kind of cheesy. Yes, it feels like a 1989 horror movie. But I think it still works, man. When you watch some of the stuff that goes on, especially toward the back half of the movie, it's a slow build, and it really gets into the material. It lays all the little crumbs that you eat up all the way to the end, and then you get to the end of this movie, man, it's just like walking into a house of horrors, if you will. It is just nonstop when you get to the back third of this movie. And it's terrifying, man. Some of the imagery and stuff that you see in this movie, it stays with you, man. It creeps you out. And, with the impending 2019 version that came out last week, I know there are a lot of people that don't like some of the decisions that one makes, and we'll get to that when we talk to it. Because there are a lot of diehard followers of this first one, and for good reason, man. You have really solid performances, from your cast. Dale Midkiff, who plays Lewis Creed, the father in the movie. It's one of those slowly unraveling. You kind of watch his character slowly unravel as more and more things are kind of dropped in front of him. And I think Midkiff does a really good job of capturing Lewis in the movie. And then, of course, a personal favorite of mine, Fred Gwynne, Herman Munster from the Munsters, if you are familiar with that show from back in the day. One of my favorite, parents put on like old TV shows when you were a kid. That was one of the ones I loved. I love the Munsters. And I love Fred Gwynne. And he really nails Judd, man. He gives you that, like, do you trust him? I don't know, kind of feel. And, that plays well in the movie. But fortunately, Judd doesn't steer us wrong too many times. Of course, he does once or twice. But I think Fred Gwynne does a really, really good job, man. He captures your heart multiple times, especially when he's interacting with the family and the kids. And you can kind of understand his motivations in some of the things that he does and doesn't do in the movie. Because of the way he feels about the family. So I really enjoyed Fred Gwynne's performance. Dennis Crosby plays Rachel Creed, Lewis's wife. Solid. Another solid performance. When you get to the back half of the movie and she can kind of get into, like, the scenes where she's, in duress or kind of being crazy, I think that stuff works really well. And they do. The three of them specifically set a really, really solid tone in the movie that is kind of not, like, there. It's a little off center, and that helps build the creepiness and the vibe of the movie the whole way as you kind of build in this roller coaster, almost like King to Ka, man. If King to Ka was like a slow climb, it's like the tallest roller coaster in the States, maybe the world. You get up in like a second or two. But if that was a slow climb up, it'd be a fast climb down. And that's what this movie does, man. It's a slow build. It gets to a peaking point. When it goes down, you're in for a lot of fun if you're a horror fan. Then you also have Miko Hughes and Blaise Berdal, who play Gage Creed, the little boy, and Ellie Creed, his older sister. Kids are really good in the movie. Specifically, Miko Hughes. He will terrify you in the back half of this movie. I love the way they utilize him, and he kind of gives you a Chucky feel at times just because of his size. He's so small, so when you see him operate, you're just like, he kind of looks like a toy. But I really enjoyed Miko Hughes. He gets you just with the face, man. And considering how young he was back then, does a good enough job. And Blaise Berdal, really nice as Ellie. She captures your heart in a way that kind of gets you tied into that character and invested. And I liked her performance. So overall, man, Pet Sematary 1989, that's a classic horror film for me, man. I'm a big fan. Like I said, it adapts the material quite well, obviously, because King was writing the screenplay. He even gives himself a little cameo. He plays a priest at one point in the movie. I won't spoil it, but it's wonderful. He pops on screen and you immediately smile anytime you can see him. I thought it worked well. As I said, for one of my favorite King books, I think this is a very faithful and solid adaptation, and a movie that I think has a large cult following. A lot of people love the Pet Sematary movies. And then I almost forgot, man. I mean, you can get a cat to be as creepy as the cat is in this movie because of the eyes. I don't know how they play the camera tricks with the eyes in the movie, but like, that's the stuff that like leaves you having nightmares, man. You see like two lights out in the street, like, oh man, is that cat over here? Stuff like that works really well, and I enjoyed how King adapts the book to the film and how Mary Lambert executes the film. I think it works very nicely. So I'm a big fan of Pet Sematary. Question is, are you? Have you seen the 1989 Pet Sematary? Are you planning to see the 1989 Pet Sematary before you go see the new one? I suggest you do. It's good to know all the material because even though some people are a little weary on the new one, it does a lot of things that are quite faithful, even though it changes a bunch of things. And even King gave its stamp of approval there, which always helps. So I would recommend watching this one, especially if you haven't read the book, because it'll clue you into some of the Easter eggs in the new one for sure. But leave me all your comments down below, man. If you have seen it, what'd you like, what'd you dislike? How did you think it was adapted as far as King, adapting his own material? What worked, what didn't. Leave all that down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, you want to come join the Cinema Sit-Down squad, be here for all the theater throwbacks, as long as I'm not missing them because I'm going to Met Games, hit that subscribe button, man, then hit the little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. The C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. Another theater throwback in the books, a little twofer for you guys. I'm the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Well. If you aren't still here, looking for something else to check out that's C-Man related, why don't you check out a video like this guy or this guy? And if you really want to help the C-Man out in year 2, hit that subscribe button and come join the Cinema Sit-Down squad, kids. You know what to do. See ya.